cool. That wasn't me writing, by the way. That was somebody else. I can't do that fast. Good afternoon, everybody. I hope lunch is going well. I'm John Engates. Clicker is temperamental. Let's see. Is my presentation actually loaded, or is this just the... Will you show me how to make it? Hold it? Oh, I went like 10 slides. Okay, I got it now. It's like a Wii. You just kind of throw it. Okay, so the topic of this presentation, the future of cloud is open. When I was asked to come and speak to you guys, let's just go to the next one. There we go. Why am I here? Why are we all here? I was asked to come talk to you guys about open, what it means to Rackspace, what we're doing with that concept, open source, open standards, open cloud, whatever you want to call it. And these were the specific, if we go to the next one, the specific things that I was sort of asked to discuss. Should I press or should I wait for you guys to press? Okay. You want me to press? Okay. Here we go. See that okay, I'm off a little bit here. The topics I was asked to discuss: importance of open multi-vendor interoperable solutions to help accelerate the shift that's going on. What are the benefits to vendors, consumers, the people in the room, and how Rackspace specifically has benefited from adopting these standards. I think my slides are out of order, so I'm going to just skip over that one. Now we think about this shift. Let's just start with the shift for a minute. I think in some contexts, I have to really cover this in detail. With you guys, I'll go through it quickly. But this shift is big. This shift is being driven by people like the social guys. They're shifting the way that we're consuming cloud infrastructure. They're using new architectures, new methodologies, completely sort of shaking up the way IT's been done. And the reason why is because they really need new technology to deliver at the scale that they're at. And also the cost. I mean, these guys, some of them don't make any money yet. So some of them are having a hard time justifying going out and buying enterprise class anything. They have to buy commodity class, and they have to do it at scale. These guys have it almost worse, especially in the storage category, because they have to hold on to hours and hours of data that gets uploaded every second. They have to hold onto it forever, and they have to do it at a profit. They're having a hard time. And the scale is just tremendous. I mean, I think there's some statistics about just how much of the internet traffic nowadays is video, and it's just staggering the percentages of what's going across. Think of all these guys and what they must be up against. Open source is something that, if you look back 10 years ago when we started Rackspace, open source was something that only the geeks use, only the hobbyists. They were bringing it to work sometimes. It was starting to creep into enterprise. But nowadays, if you think back on the internet and the evolution of that, everything we're looking at, especially the companies that I just mentioned, all those guys are using open source technologies to build their business. What else is on the horizon? Big data. You can't ignore big data because the data that's being generated by devices and both the products and services that I mentioned, but also the devices in our everyday lives. Your phone throws off information about where you are and what you're doing and who you're interacting with. Your electric meter is constantly generating new digital data that used to be collected once a month. Now it's collected every 15 seconds or so by a utility grid, a smart grid. All of that data is going somewhere, and it all needs to be analyzed over time, and that's what big data is all about. Think about the lowly PC. The PC 10 years ago used to be the center of our digital universe. This was everything to us. You carried it with you if you could carry it. Some of them were desktops, but if you were lucky, you had a $3,000 laptop and you carried it around with you, and that was it. That was where all your data sat. Nowadays, you've got multiple devices. I would say probably everyone in this room comes to a conference like this with at least 2, possibly 3 or 4 digital devices: your smartphone, your tablet, your computer, maybe another device of some sort. All of that revolves around the cloud. The cloud is really the power behind mobility, behind the idea of portable devices. I call these cloud devices because they're really useless without the cloud. They really rely on a constant connection, a constant stream of access to back-end infrastructure. The only thing you can do is play a game or two without the cloud, and that's about My daughter the other day, we were at the mall, and she happened to take her iPod Touch, and she asked why wasn't it working. I said, well, there's no Wi-Fi, and she had never thought about the fact that there's a network connection there. She's only 5 years old, but she had never taken it out of the house before, and so it confused her as to why this phone, the iPhone, worked everywhere, but the iPod Touch didn't, and that won't be the way it will be in the future. I mean, nobody will ever think about a device not having access or connectivity everywhere you go. So that's really the future there. And then bring your own device. This is sort of this intersection of consumer IT and business IT, enterprise IT, sort of bashing headlong into one another, and that's driving a whole bunch of change within IT departments. So really what all this boils down to, when you think about all the challenges that IT faces and all the trends that we're seeing, is cloud computing. If you distill all those challenges down, it leads you to cloud computing, because this is the new generation of architecture. This is scale out, typically on top of commodity type hardware, at least in many of the public clouds. And it solves a lot of the challenges that we're up against. And I think it's obviously what all of this is about. It's a big change. It's every bit as big as the ones that have come before it. Mainframe to client server to cloud. I think cloud is bigger because it encompasses consumer this time around. Consumer wasn't really a part of the discussion when we went from mainframes to client server. There was no consumer. It was business. It was all business. And now we're thinking about it in every aspect of life. It's the internet of people, but also the internet of devices, and they're a part of this as well. It's just growing like crazy. So one of the interesting sort of challenges to all this stuff I've been saying is that most of computing is still done in private data centers, in non-cloud-like architectures, sometimes in just traditional old-fashioned dedicated servers. In fact, at Rackspace, we offer dedicated servers. We offer virtualized and cloud, and we still have customers with footprint in every one of those. And the truth of the matter is that there's still things that are holding back many IT shops from adopting cloud computing. Even though they see the benefits, even though they see the advantages, there are things holding us back. Most of that falls into the category of the punchline, risk. So risk. You hear about security as a challenge, and you hear about people that are reluctant to put their data outside the firewall. Well, that falls into the category of risk for sure. But there's other risk within an IT department. Sometimes if an IT leader makes a wrong decision, and 6 months later or 2 years later, somebody looks back in the rearview mirror and says, "Why did we do that? Why did we make that decision?" Well, the IT guy didn't have a crystal ball. He didn't know how things were going to play out. He couldn't see the future necessarily, and so now he looks like he made a bad decision, even though he did it with all the information he had at the time. That's bad for him, so that's risk. He doesn't necessarily want to take that risk. If you think about all the other risks, just sort of tick them off in your head. Vendor lock-in is one of those risks, and we see that starting to creep in a big way. If you think about public cloud today, I put these two guys up there because they're my favorite two to talk about. There's others. There's others out there, but these two are certainly the ones that I spend a lot of time on. If you think about those two just by themselves, they speak a different language. Amazon has their APIs, Rackspace has ours. If you put private cloud into the mix, VMware has yet another language. They really don't communicate with one another. They're islands at this point. There's no significance to the F-bombs or whatever those things are down there. I didn't build a slide, so I won't take any credit for that. So the trouble with APIs, a lot of people would love for APIs to just be standardized. Amazon's ahead. Why don't you just go adopt Amazon's APIs? Why don't you just make that the standard? Everybody ought to just coalesce around their APIs. The trouble is it goes a lot deeper than just APIs. APIs are the surface. They're what you see. They're what you interact with. They're what developers think of. But the trouble is that what's behind the scenes, what's underneath the surface, is the services themselves, the cloud resources. Cloud resources are things like the actual storage system itself, the actual compute cloud, the actual database architecture or big data architectures, the things that are exposed via APIs. what's behind the scenes matters more. And I think the trouble is you can't just clone an API and expect to get the same cloud at another provider. You see that today with some of the guys like, I'll use Eucalyptus. Eucalyptus is famous for being the company that has cloned Amazon's APIs. They're the guys that sell their cloud based on that sales pitch, basically. The trouble is the coverage of what they actually have is minuscule and compared to what Amazon presents. Amazon has services that have no coverage in Eucalyptus, and even for the services that are covered, there is not anywhere near 100% fidelity in terms of those services. Think about the different architectures that are in an enterprise data center versus what's in a cloud data center like Amazon. They're fundamentally different architectures. There's no SAN at Amazon. There's no redundant servers. There's different kind of LAN technology. There's different kind of regional locations for all these things. So copying an API is literally just the tip of the iceberg in terms of what it takes. Torsten is the CTO of RightScale. He said it's the semantics of the resources in the cloud that matter, not the syntax of the API. And I fully agree. So the idea of just cloning the Amazon APIs being enough, I think it's wishful thinking. It's ridiculous to think that we can just copy the APIs and get everything to talk to one another. Linux, on the other hand, Linux being open, 10 years ago or 12 years ago when I joined Rackspace, we were starting to do a lot of hosting on Linux. Linux was open not just at the surface layer. This isn't just compatibility with at a top level layer. This is compatibility all the way down the stack. And this is what was the antithesis to the proprietary and traditional architectures that a lot of the big Unix guys were doing. They were proprietary. They were all about getting your software onto their platform and never letting you out. And that is essentially what Linux sort of broke the mold of. It broke away from that concept. We think that OpenStack is doing the same thing. My timing is everything today. There we go, OpenStack. So OpenStack, our goal when we launched this project a couple years back, everybody in the room has heard of OpenStack. How many people have heard of OpenStack? Okay, good. This is by far the record in terms of percentage. I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about OpenStack. I'm going to tell you why it's so important. So OpenStack is our answer to lock-in. It's how we break down this challenge of vendor proprietary platforms, and we give you not just the APIs, but we give you the actual services behind the scenes. If you think about that in this context, running OpenStack instead of a variety of proprietary platforms give you the same code, the same architecture in a private context as in a public cloud. Why open matters? It fosters innovation. We've already seen within OpenStack community tons of innovation that we would have never thought of if we would build this all by ourselves. We have seen at the last OpenStack Design Summit, there were 1,000 attendees, and this by far was the biggest in terms of attendees, but it was also the biggest in terms of user case studies. We had lots of people coming and telling their story around what they were doing with OpenStack, and we saw people like Wikipedia talking about what they were doing with OpenStack. We talked to the guys at the San Diego Center for Supercomputing and what they were using it for in a supercomputer context. CERN in Switzerland is using it in that same way and sort of to power part of the Large Hadron Collider. And think about those use cases. Those aren't your typical public cloud use case. A high-performance compute cluster is something that we don't run a lot of those. And even Amazon, when they talk about a compute cloud, it's not that level of compute cloud. It's sort of more of the loosely coupled type. So innovation is happening. It's happening all over the world. It's happening in China, Asia, South America, all over the world. And it's because I think people see the advantages. They see choice in that they can deploy on whatever hardware, in whatever data center, whatever storage infrastructure they want, whatever network architecture they want. It's all now up for the user to decide, the vendor to decide what they want to deploy on and how they want to present their services. It lowers cost dramatically. If you think about the enterprise software tax that sort of goes into a data center, every vendor wants to have their piece of it, and virtualization was yet another layer that we added on 9 or 10 years ago, and really cloud is yet another one that they can add in. So should we really be doing that if we're trying to lower costs and do things more nimbly and more agile? is adding cost to the equation the right answer? And then finally, just breaking down this idea of lock-in. I think lock-in is what prevents a lot of enterprises, and I talked about risk a minute ago. Enterprises don't want to make a bad decision. They don't want to get locked into the wrong cloud. They don't want to go down a path that 2 years from now they're going to have to rewrite everything. And so if we can start to, I mean, I think that's what Open Data Center Alliance is about, is breaking down some of the barriers to adoption by its members. And so I hope OpenStack plays a role in that. So another area of benefit is not just in the users of OpenStack, but also the ecosystem around it. Think about ecosystems and how powerful they are. This is one of the best examples of a closed ecosystem that I could think of. One that's very powerful. It prints money, and it's hard to sort of break out of. If you're in a closed ecosystem, you may not want to. You may find it so appealing and so irresistible that you want to be a part of it. I am myself. I held up my iPhone, so it is pretty cool. But it certainly is a ecosystem that is can be challenging for its participants. If you think about ecosystems throughout history, think about visionary companies like Sun with Solaris, and then Windows coming along and making it mass consumable. Linux made it open. Linux made it something that everyone could use and make it sort of ubiquitous worldwide. Everyone had access to it. BlackBerry invented the smartphone. Apple made it mass consumable for sure, and then Android made it open. I think the same thing's going on today with OpenStack. OpenStack is the one that we think is the right platform. It gives you a lot of choice. It gives you the flexibility to do what you want, and it invites the ecosystem in. The vendors that have joined, we've been just pleased as can be about all of the industry support. At the recent Design Summit, we had Red Hat and IBM and the guys at SUSE and Ubuntu. I can't name all the guys. Cisco, Dell, HP. I mean, there's just tons and tons of companies that are now backing OpenStack because they want to have a role in the cloud. They don't want to be put on the sidelines and told, well, the cloud's going to be this way. It's going to use this hardware. You don't have a say in it, and you're out. That's not the right way. If we're reinventing IT, if we are fundamentally reshaping the way IT is going to be done, do we want to do it with one or two companies telling us how it's going to be done, or do we want to all have a say in it? I think that's what OpenStack is all about. That's what Open Data Center Alliance is all about. That's what a lot of the things that we're doing are about. So just real quick update on OpenStack. There's 2 slides here, maybe 3 at the most. What is it? It's an operating system. We call it an operating system. It sits on top of Linux, so it doesn't fundamentally replace that operating system, but it's more of an operating system for your data center. It takes those those resources, it pools them, whether it be CPU or computer or disk or network. All those different pools of components within your data center are pooled, and they're exposed through APIs or through self-service portals to the users. It tracks a lot of data about what's going on in the network and what's going on in the system. It has all the multi-tenancy ideas in place so that it can be used for a public cloud or a private cloud, and it really is sort of the middle layer of what needs to happen to build a cloud. If you think about the capabilities that go in there, every good open source project has a code name. Codename Nova is the one for virtual compute. Object storage, Swift, Quantum for networks. These are all basically mapped to the different components of a cloud, and there will be more. These are sort of the early ones that are out there in full swing today. There are more in the works, and every time we go to one of these design summits every 6 months, there are new projects that are sort of promoted into the main line, and so we're going to see a lot of new projects. The ones that are exciting to me right now, obviously, Nova and Swift are ones that we're actively using, but what's coming is Quantum. We're using that to drive our software-defined networking product, where we're exposing the ability for customers to deploy their own networks in their own ways in the cloud, and not just security groups, but real layer 2 network zones. We're giving customers our own dashboard. We're using a little bit of this Keystone and Glance middleware to sort of glue things together, but we're really all in on OpenStack. And there's a lot of other people that are all in on OpenStack. If you think about who who else has adopted. I mentioned a few of these people, but a lot of these are building full-on services, cloud services, public cloud. Some of them are building websites or SaaS businesses on top. There are people, I had a dozen conversations this morning after my earlier keynote about platform as a service vendors. There's a lot of them out there that want to build PaaSes, and they want their PaaS to be portable. They want to be able to build it for a public cloud. They also want it to be able to migrate, if need be, to a competitor public cloud or a private cloud. They don't want to be locked into a particular vendor. And I think that's why you're seeing such interest around OpenStack today. So Open Compute, I wanted to put a slide in here about Open Compute because I think this is important as well. How many people are working on or interested or participants in Open Compute? Okay, so much smaller group than knew about OpenStack. This one is another one that I think is really interesting. It's a little bit deeper in terms of the technology, but it goes hand in hand. I mean, every good cloud needs infrastructure behind the scenes, and this is a collaboration that Facebook basically kicked off. Facebook had an idea to basically open up their data center design and their server design and make it an open source effort in a way. They didn't see any huge advantage to keeping it proprietary and closed, the same way we don't see any huge advantage to keeping our cloud software proprietary. So that's why we're giving it to the community and hoping the community gives back. I think the same thing here with hardware. This is a lot of innovation going on, and it's something that you should take a look at. It's early days for both of these projects. I think OpenStack is a little further along than Open Compute by a long shot, but it's something that we need your help and we need your support on. We're betting our business. Rackspace is, like I said, we're all in. We're making sure that OpenStack as a foundation is there, but then what really differentiates us is our services, our expertise, our support, all the things that we've done all along. If you think back to our history, we never had a proprietary technology advantage over a competitor. We had the same Linux, the same Windows, the same Cisco gear as everybody else. We just did something a little differently in terms of how we delivered the service, what we put on, and the kinds of experts that we wrapped around it. I think that's why we did OpenStack in the first place, why we launched it, why we're so excited about it. It levels the playing field. It gives you guys all the same technology as the big guys, the big clouds. We hope that you'll join us with OpenStack. I think if you want to get involved, OpenStack.org is the place to go. If you're interested. We have a number of services wrapped around OpenStack, but I won't advertise. I'll just tell you that OpenStack is what I want you to take away from this. It has been a big benefit for us. It has been a phenomenal way for us to connect with the community of users and builders. Every one of those design summits has been a place where people can debate things. I think one of the hard parts about cloud has been that everybody's hoped that the standard would emerge and then everybody would sort of gravitate to the standard. But it's sort of been difficult to get those efforts off the ground. So far, none has really stuck very well. And I think OpenStack represents a place that we can come together. We can come together and debate what a cloud ought to look like, what technology can be used within a cloud, how the interfaces work, how how the architecture really evolves. And I think that's really what open source and open collaboration is all about. So I hope you will join us. I think that's my last slide. I have a few minutes for questions. I'm a little early, but I'll take a few questions if you have any. There's one right here.
Any comments about CloudStack?
Any comments about CloudStack? That is probably like my number one question that gets asked. What about CloudStack? Well, look, I don't know what Citrix was thinking when they decided to move away from OpenStack, because OpenStack had all the momentum in the world, more than it needed. Citrix, for those of you that don't know, most of you do, but Citrix bought a company called Cloud.com. The product was called CloudStack. And it sort of happened at about the same time that they were sort of midway in the efforts to start to use OpenStack themselves. So Citrix was an early adopter, early promoter of OpenStack. And what I think happened at Citrix, and this is an outsider's perspective, I think that they had a couple of irons in the fire. They had made a couple bets. One of them they spent a big chunk of money on. The other one was an open source project that didn't have a lot of track record yet. And for them, I think they had to go make some revenue, sell some product, do something today. And I think the cloud stack was the more evolved horse in that race at that point. But if you fast forward, 6, 9 months, maybe a year, I mean, that decision wasn't made the day it was announced. It was made months, maybe longer before that. OpenStack has come quite a ways. I mean, there are now, Rackspace is moving its entire platform to OpenStack. Hewlett-Packard has announced a public cloud on OpenStack. There are a number of other providers, probably in the room here, that are using OpenStack. And I think that just my opinion is they didn't make the right choice. They should have stuck with us. They should have combined efforts instead of fragmented. But they did make the choice that they made, and I think we'll see what happens. Their project certainly is open source. It's under the Apache license at this point. It's, in fact, it's a Apache project itself. But the community isn't there in comparison to OpenStack. My comment is that just let the community effort speak for itself. Let the number of companies that are backing OpenStack speak for itself. Let the number of contributors that are actually writing code and introducing those. And the fact that Citrix hasn't completely left OpenStack. They're still contributing code to the project themselves. So there's something, they're hedging their bets there. So we'll see. Anybody else have any questions? Any other thoughts or comments? It doesn't have to be a question. It can be you can throw tomatoes at me if you want. Anybody using OpenStack today in the room? In any capacity at all? Okay, there's 1, 2, 3 souls, 4 souls in the back. Okay, good. Well, look, I think over the rest of this year, for sure, you're going to see a lot more. I know for a fact. There's lots all over the world. This isn't just a U.S. phenomenon either. There's a conference a week, it seems like, in Asia where they're talking about OpenStack, and it's really exciting for me to see how far we've come, how fast we've come. This project is 2 years old. It's one of the fastest growing open source projects in history, and I'm very proud of what's going on there, and I hope you guys get involved. So thank you very much, and see you soon.